Remember how just a few weeks ago he was confronted on the air for the rape accusation, and his response was essentially, I did it, and there might be more accusations against me in the future? That was crazy.
RFK, you ran the right way. You did what you were supposed to do. You're a Democrat. You primaried a Democrat incumbent, and they wouldn't let you. How did they jam you out of this thing? Because now look at what happened.
Yeah, I think it was a strategic mistake by the Democrats, Jesse, and you and I have talked about this before. But they got rid of, they changed the primary rules while while we were running the primary. They changed 60 different rules to make it impossible for anybody to challenge Joe Biden. One of the things that you remember that they did to me is I've been campaigning in New Hampshire, so they adopted a rule that said that any political candidate, any Democratic candidate who campaigns in New Hampshire, who steps foot into the state of New Hampshire, that all of their votes would go to the president, all of their delegates would go to the president, instead of going...
I don't know any of the details of this. I think it's safe to, like, disregard anything he says on the basis of him being a paid plant and a liar and a rapist. I don't really care, to be honest. I will say I do agree with the accusation that the Democrats like deliberately squashed the primary this time around, and I do think that's bad. It's just these criticisms mean nothing from RFK Jr. because he's a lunatic conspiracy theorist far-right plant who was placed in the Democratic primary by Republicans to pull votes from Joe Biden, which, you know, in case you're wondering what he's up to right now, by the way, he's urging the DNC to use neutral polling to name the new presidential nominee. So RFK Jr., you know, with his massive IQ, his suggestion is, what if you chose your presidential nominee from non-Democratic Party polling, you know? What if everyone got to weigh in on that, you know? Not the DNC. What if like the Republicans got to choose your candidate? There's no possible negative incentive to that one. He's so unserious. Yeah.
That. And then they shut down the Florida primary. They shut down a bunch of primaries and just said, we're not running them. We already have our candidate. You know, a few weeks ago, President Biden was ridiculing Vladimir Putin, who won 88% of the vote in Russia, and he said, you know, that was a fixed election. Because
as evidenced by the fact that it is objectively a fixed election in a dictatorship. Also curious to immediately like implicitly race to the defense of Vladimir Putin. Also, wow, look at how shit the sleeve sizing is on Joe Biden's suit right here. My God, don't ever go for like a skinny fit sleeve. It just rides up your shirt, catches at the elbow, and now you have like half a foot of shirt exposed.
President Putin had gotten
this guy's shirt isn't even showing. What the f is going on over here?
It made sure no adversaries could challenge him, and also that he had fixed the press so the press wouldn't cover his adversaries.
Joe Biden did a conspiracy to prevent people from listening to this beautiful voice of mine. It's definitely not because I have no charisma, independent poll ideas that appeal to Democrats.
Well, the Democratic Party succeeded in doing the same thing. I haven't been allowed on any of the Democratic networks, ABC, NBC, CBS.
You're not, you're not obligated to if they don't want to bring you on? Why would they be obligated to bring you on? Why would they be obligated to do that?
CNN, as you know, Fox has allowed me on, although Fox...
I wonder why. What could possibly indicate the unpopularity of a presidential candidate who exclusively gets interviewed by the right wing, you know? That's very interesting. I wonder why.
People like you have allowed me to speak. You debate me. You give me a platform.
What do they debate him on? Have you guys ever seen RFK Jr. argue with a right-leaning figure? Genuine question, by the way. Have you ever seen anyone bring him on to disagree with him because he's a paid plant who exists to pull votes from Joe Biden? I guess now Kamala Harris. I've never seen him actually argue with, yeah, they just platform him and he just complains about the Democrats. That's it.
Even though you don't agree with things that I say, and I think that's the way the media is supposed to work. But
Yeah,
the other media
it's like
networks have
Monopoly
forgotten about that.
when you're playing with children. You just change the rules in the middle of the game and just kind of make it up as you go along. You can't do that when it comes to these high stakes. You know how things operate at conventions. There's been a long history of chicanery at these things. You've now have uncommitted delegates. Are we going to see bribery? Are we going to see quid pro quo? Are we going to see ambassadorships promised, donors, greed?
What is this? Bosch, I agree the conspiracy theories about this being planned from the start are wrong. My friend has been nagging me about this since before the debate, and I just know she's going to be insufferable. Divini, show this clip to her. New York Times runs seemingly pre-written op-ed calling for Biden to drop out of the presidential race. The URL indicates the article was at least partially pre-written and loaded up on June 25th. I've got a crazy bit of breaking info for you. All of them are pre-written. There are people who have pre-written every possible event. Like, you have no idea. Everything that could happen, everyone with a personal grudge, everyone's waiting for the right time to pull the trigger. You think people are waiting for the news to happen before they write these op-eds? Writing takes time. You need to get it vetted afterwards? Why not just write several op-eds beforehand, have the editors check them, and then wait? You can write that shit months in advance. The idea that Joe Biden would do so poorly in his debate that he should drop out, not exactly like a crazy difficult thing to predict. We were talking about it before the debate. We were saying, wow, you know, there's a very, very real chance Joe Biden ends up being so incompetent and old that he doesn't, you know, like it's not that difficult to predict these sorts of things, you know? And if what you believe doesn't come to pass, you just don't release the op-ed.
You're basically, this is a sprint to grease as many delegates by mid-August as possible.
What is that breathing? Is that
yeah,
RFK?
I think, you know, some of that is bound to happen.
Sounds like Darth Vader.
I think, you know, most of those delegates are kind of mom and pop people. They're committed to Biden. They committed originally to Biden. His releasing them, I think a lot of them are probably idealistic people who want to see the Democratic nominee, or terrified of Donald Trump, who want to see the Democratic nominee succeed. But I don't, you know, the indicators now, Jesse, is that the party elites are not really going to let go of the process. And we'll see what happens. You know, the last time, there's a lot of similarities between this election and what happened with my dad's election in 1968.
There we go. Anyone on the timer? That was 4:41 until RFK Jr. brings up his father or his uncle in any conversation ever on any subject.
There was a war
going. Oh, now they're zooming in on him now because they're like, this is what we bring him in for. The only people who care about RFK Jr. are either on the right wing or know him through name recognition. So now we're bringing him in.
Going on at that time that was very controversial and it was very damaging to our country. There were protesters in the street. The convention was in Chicago. And my father, who was leading, got knocked out by an assassin's bullet, not by a resignation. You, in effect, had an open convention, but the DNC at that time tried to maintain control over it. They put their candidate in, which was Hubert Humphrey. There was the convention became riotous, and the riots shocked the American public, and they didn't want anything to do with the Democratic Party after that. And I think a lot of people in the Democratic Party probably should look back to what happened in 1968 and
the completely incomparable situation. Gotcha. What is he talking about? Hello? You know, invariably every RFK Jr. video ends up doing this. It's just a matter of time, like how long they last. More of this. What's up, Tulsi? They paying you well?
Former Democratic
Remember when everyone was like, wow, she shifted to the right so rapidly and so incoherently, it's almost like after she drops out in 2020, she's immediately going to get a Fox News spot, and then she immediately got a Fox News spot. Like, the grift was so obvious and so telegraphed that we, it was that obvious. It was that straightforward.
Presidential candidate Tulsi Gabbard is here. Tulsi, I don't think Coons is faking it. He's been a Biden lover since the jump. Van Jones has been pushing Biden out harder than anybody. Those are crocodile tears. That guy's the best actor on CNN.
You know, the fact that they're touting President Joe Biden making this decision as doing what's best for the country, you know, it's just hypocrisy given how many of them, as you mentioned, have been saying for days that he should step down as the Democratic nominee. I think
What?
the thing here to focus on, Jesse, is all of these different